All right, we're back on the Press Box Podcast. This will be episode number 104, our weekly NFL recap episode where we recap Week 8, which just concluded with the Chiefs beating the Giants in a very close game on Monday Night Football. So we'll talk about that game and all the games from this past week and preview Week 9 coming up starting this Thursday. So before I get into that, as always, let's talk about first our Twitter account at PressBoxPod. Make sure to follow us on there. Tweet at us thoughts about the podcast, thoughts about the season. Really thoughts about anything you guys have. We always enjoy interacting. Find us on YouTube as well. Search Pressbox Podcast. All the stuff that our producer Nathan's putting up there is great as well. So check us out on YouTube. And then finally, iTunes. Subscribe, rate, review, all of that stuff. We love hearing from you guys on iTunes as well. And as we look to help grow the podcast here. But that's enough about that. Let's get into the episode. Episode 104, NFL Week 8 recap starts right now on the Pressbox Podcast.
Okay, welcome back to the Press Box Podcast. I'm your co-host, Ralph Miranda. I'll be joined by my other co-host, Joseph Miranda, our producer, Nathan Miranda, shortly. This is episode number 104, our weekly NFL recap. And week 8 in the NFL was just in the books. Some teams have played 8 games. Some teams have played 7, and some have had byes. And week 8 was a rather stellar week. The week opened up with a Thursday night game of the undefeated Arizona Cardinals hosting the one-loss Green Bay Packers. We had a couple other games during the week that were, marquee matchups. The Buccaneers were at the Saints. The Saints had beaten the Buccaneers twice last year during the Buccaneers championship season. We had the Patriots at the Chargers. We had the Titans at the Colts for a showdown to see who would take control of the AFC South division. The Steelers, Browns, which is always a good battle, and of course the Dolphins and the Bills in another divisional matchup. So I guess I'll get started with you, Joseph. And from week 8, which game did you go into the week saying, "Hey, this is kind of a game I want to look at"? And coming out of the week, which one did you think told us the most about how the season is going?
Yeah, so going in, it was the Thursday night game, the Packers and Cardinals, and I think. I remember last week's episode, I think I picked the Packers, or I said the Cardinals would get their first loss, I believe.
Right.
I didn't say that on here. I thought that, but and that proved to be true. We talked about the Cardinals a little bit last week and their playoff, not chances, but their playoff capabilities once they get in. And I said that the Packers would be one of the teams that I would favor over them in the playoffs. And, it was a competitive game. Kyler Murray didn't have a great night, I would say, but he held it, he hung in there, gave them a chance to win at the end there. But the Packers came out on top, and I think that showed that they're still a little bit of a step above the Cardinals, in the NFC, even though the Cardinals came in undefeated. So going in, that was the one I was probably looking at most. I'd say coming out of the week, I think I'm going to look at the not so much the Titans game, just what happened to Derrick Henry. I think that, he was an MVP candidate, so far this season, and really was propelling the Titans to what they were doing. I think without him, the Titans, I think you can scratch them off as a Super Bowl contender now. I know they signed Adrian Peterson, who I'm a big fan of, so very happy about that. But he's at this point in his career, he's not Derrick Henry. So, that's the biggest, I think, news coming out of this week is what's going to happen to the Titans now.
Right. I would agree with that. Nathan, what are your thoughts about that particularly?
The Derrick Henry?
Yeah. And the Titans.
Yeah. The Titans, they won the game, but
right.
I think they were down for a period of time in that game. Quite, but they didn't play too well, I think. Or the Titans are weird. Like we said, they can sometimes. I think we talked about this last Sunday. Some days they look like they can beat any team in the league, and other days look like anybody could probably beat them. So, and then now so I never was really. I don't know if I was ever sold on them being a real Super Bowl contender because of that.
Right.
And now they don't have Derrick Henry. I mean, you can forget about it.
Right.
That's the biggest. That is the most. I mean, if you really want to talk about most valuable player and what that should really mean, he is the most valuable player to his team in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think outside of maybe Brady.
Right.
Or Rodgers.
Or Rodgers. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Okay. And it's tough to compare quarterbacks to running backs because quarterbacks have it's more of a difference maker in quarterback. So let me take that back. Outside of any quarterback in the league, he's by far the most valuable player to his team.
Right. Right.
So losing him is obviously a huge blow. And Peterson, I agree. Like Joe said, love Adrian Peterson. I'm big on him, but he's not Derrick Henry. But the worst thing the Titans could do, though, is just like give him a few carries here and there.
Right.
Give him 12 carries. They need to feed him the ball like there's no tomorrow because that's where Adrian Peterson shines.
Right.
All right. Act like this is Derrick Henry and just give him 35 carries.
Right. Yeah.
No,
what do you have to lose?
I don't disagree with that at all. I think the Titans are still going to win the South Division. Yeah. I think, that's pretty obvious. I mean, you got the Jaguars and the Texans who are, I think if you put those two teams together, you'd only have probably 3 or 4 wins this season. And then you got the Colts who now are 3 full games behind the Titans with a loss to them. So I think the Titans, if there's a silver lining to this, is that they are pretty much in the driver's seat in the division and they can spend a few weeks kind of figuring it out. Like how are we going to use Adrian Peterson? How are we going to make up for the loss of Derrick Henry? How are we going to get Tannehill more involved since he has to be? And what are we going to do from there? So, but I agree with you that I think if there was any chance of them being a Super Bowl contender, I think it's kind of gone out the window.
That's a great point. They do have they can afford to take a few weeks to figure out how the rest of the season is going to look.
Right.
Because they're 6-2. So
right. They have that ability because of the division they're in.
Yeah.
I think as far as the Packers and the Cardinals go, gosh, the Packers don't really impress me except for Aaron Rodgers. Basically he played that game without his top receiver and
2 other guys.
2 other guys, one that was hurt, another one that was out for COVID, and the guy still was able to engineer a victory. I think Aaron Rodgers may be the most valuable player in the league to his team. Okay.
I think there is a case we made him over Brady because the Buccaneers have a better team around.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you take Rodgers off the Packers and they're nothing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the Cardinals, it's kind of like their old coach used to say, I'm afraid that they are what we thought they were. I know they were undefeated. They were at home, though. They were playing a Packers team that was very shorthanded, and they couldn't get it done. And Kyler Murray, they had a chance to win that game with about 12 seconds left, and Kyler Murray threw an interception in the end zone. And I think you just can't have those things happen. Now, the Cardinals now are tied with the Rams in that division. I think the Seahawks and the 49ers have kind of fallen off, and they do have to play the Rams again. And we'll talk some more about the Rams and what they've done here the last few days. But I'm starting to wonder about the Cardinals just a little bit, maybe.
I think this was, like Joe said, this was the game I was most looking forward to. I think this is the game that maybe told us the most too, because the Packers to win that game on the road without some of their best players on offense, is pretty telling. I know you can say the Cardinals aren't there yet, which I don't think they quite are, but still, though, they were undefeated. The Packers, that's still a big win for the Packers without their main weapon. So I think the Packers could probably beat any team in the league, really.
I agree. Yeah.
As long as they have Aaron Rodgers. It's like dodgeball. As long as they got Aaron Rodgers, we'll be all right.
Yeah, that's right.
And the Cardinals are going to win that division still, obviously, but I think this is just kind of like a preview of what the playoffs would look like for the Cardinals. They're great. They're a really good team, and they're not going to get. I think they're at the point where they're not going to get blown out by anybody.
Right.
They're not going to look bad. But when it comes to playing some of the elite players like Rodgers and some of those type of teams, I don't think they can quite get it done.
I'll let you weigh in here in a minute, Joseph, but let's look at the remaining Packers schedule. They're 7-1 right now. They're at the Chiefs next week. Then they host the Seahawks, at the Vikings, host the Rams. That'll be an interesting game. Host the Bears, at the Ravens, which will be another interesting game. Host the Browns, and then host the Vikings, and then at the Lions. So looking at that schedule, I would only say the Chiefs, the Ravens, and maybe the Browns and the Rams. The Chiefs, the Rams, the Ravens, and the Browns, and maybe not all 4 of those will be testy games. Probably not the Browns. So you really, I mean, the Packers could end up, 13-4, 14-3.
Yeah, I think that's what you're looking at, and then also you have to remember too. Now it's November. The Lambeau Field weather will start playing more of a factor.
Right.
In September, October, the Rams, you said, is 3 or 4 weeks away, so it may be down in the 30s by that point. There, it's Rams coming from California indoors. That's just a whole other element to them. But
right.
I agree with you. I think the Packers would go at worst 13-4. I think
right.
they only lose 2 or 3 games.
Right. I agree with that.
I agree.
Yeah. I think the Packers, the Packers could be one of the better teams in the league right now. And let's talk about the Cowboys real quick. I mean, the Cowboys seem to fly under the radar a little bit. And I think most people, they've been underachievers for quite a while. They've had talent. They've never quite been able to get it done. But I think the Cowboys are a team to be reckoned with this year. I mean, you're looking at a team now that's 6-1 overall. I mean, they've won 6 straight. Packers have won 7 straight. They beat the Vikings in Minnesota Sunday night with a backup quarterback. At the last minute, I guess right before the game, Dak Prescott was deemed to be out due to his calf injury.
First career start.
Yeah, first career start for Cooper Rush. Yeah. And he didn't look that great. He made some poor throws. He threw a couple of interceptions, but they got it done. And I think you got to start looking at the Cowboys a little bit. What do you think, Joseph?
Yeah. I think that the playmakers that have an offense, with 2 receivers and Prescott when he's going well, which he's been doing this season. I think they're a step behind the Packers and the Buccaneers, but I think that it's not inconceivable they can get to the Super Bowl. I don't know if they're a true Super Bowl contender, but they're going to be a playoff team. And stuff you read sometimes, it's like I feel like people still don't really believe in Mike McCarthy as a coach. Like
right.
They're kind of doing despite him or what they talk about on TV and what you read. But I mean, like Parcells always said, you are what your record says you are, and they're they only have 1 loss now. So I think you got to give him credit and the Cowboys credit. And I think we talked about it in the preseason show. This possibility was one of the possibilities for their season, that they have a really good season. And they only lose maybe 3 or 4 games. And I think that they're not going to go 15-2, 16-1. I think they'll end up with 4 or 5 losses somehow. But I think they win that division pretty easily and make the playoffs.
Let's look at their their schedule here real quick, just like we did for the Packers. They host the Broncos this week, host the Falcons, then they're at the Chiefs, then they host the Raiders, then they're at the Saints. Then they have a fall break for 3 weeks. They're Washington, the Giants, and Washington again. Then they host the Cardinals, and then they're at the Eagles. So, again, you look at that schedule, the only teams on there that I mean, assuming Cowboys play like they've been playing, the only teams that I see that really can beat them are maybe the Chiefs, maybe the Saints. But, again, the Saints have lost their quarterback, right. And maybe the Cardinals. So I think you're looking at a team that's going to be, in my view, I think you're looking at a team that could be challenging Green Bay and the Arizona Rams winner of the West for the number 1 seed.
Yeah, I think the Raiders. Did you say Raiders? I think they can maybe beat it. Yeah. Okay.
They host the Raiders. Yeah.
I agree with that. I guess Prescott. There's no concern for him like long term because
I think he's going to play this week. Yeah.
But no, I agree. I could see them in the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see it. I don't see them beating Tampa Bay or Green Bay in the playoffs, or maybe even the Rams. I think they're kind of a step behind those teams. They're on par with the Cardinals. That's it.
Yeah, that's fair. Speaking of the Rams, let's talk about the Rams real quickly here. The Rams were able to they beat the Texans, which is not saying much. They had like a 38-0 lead, and the Texans scored 3 garbage touchdowns, which forced the game into a push from a betting standpoint. But regardless, they pretty much dominated the Texans. So you're looking at a Rams team now that's 7-1. Their only loss was to the Cardinals. They traded for Matt Stafford in the offseason. That's no secret. We've talked about that pretty much. But they made another big trade here this week. They traded for Von Miller from the Broncos and gave up a couple of, I think, a 3rd-round pick and a 2nd-round pick next year. So what you're seeing with the Rams right now, it's interesting. I read an article about it. They've traded away lots of draft capital to make a run. I mean, I think they're all in right now. They're going for it. They want to win the Super Bowl. And, they don't have a lot of draft picks coming up here in the next few years, high draft picks. And it's a team that's going to get older. So what do you think about that strategy? I mean, the Rams obviously now have made it known that they want to win and they want to win now.
Yeah, I think that that's a good strategy for them. They're kind of taking a page out of the Buccaneers playbook, is what they did last year. They basically are going for now too, and it worked last year, right? They won the Super Bowl and they're right in. But yeah, I mean, of course, I think Stafford's still got probably 5 or 6 good years left in him. Really, I mean,
probably
the way quarterbacks are playing now. I think he's only 33 or so.
But
anyway,
not that old. Yeah.
Not that old, but Von Miller's still a very good player. He's a former Super Bowl MVP. I like that trade, especially they didn't have to give up a first-round pick. It's always good. And then, I think it's a great move. And they did what I think Nathan pointed this out last week in the podcast that, they were 6-1, but when you play somebody like the Texans, you come out and handle your business, right? You don't fool around with them and put them. Right. They did basically. Like you said, it was 38-0. So that showed that. Yeah, I mean, they beat the Texans, but the way they did it showed that they're for real.
Right.
Yeah, I like that move too. I mean, if you feel like you have a window, you need to take advantage of it, run through it. That's what they're trying to do. And I don't think it's all in for. I mean, I don't think it's just this year is the window. I think it's this year, next year, even.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Buccaneers are still in it, as long as they can keep everybody like the Bucs did.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they have a couple of years here where they can. This is the best chance they've had since they lost the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Back.
Yeah.
And they have a better team, I think, than they did then.
Yeah, they do have a better team. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah. And the addition of Von Miller now, along with Aaron Donald, I mean, is going to make that defensive front very dangerous because if you're an offense, which one do you block? Who do you double team?
I was just thinking recently, a few weeks ago, I was watching the Broncos and I thought, oh yeah, Von Miller. I forgot about him. I was thinking like I'm sure he's still great, but I felt a little bad for him. He's kind of fading away in Denver. But now this is great for him too.
I would put the Rams as the NFC favorites right now to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Slightly ahead of the Buccaneers, and definitely ahead of the Packers as well. Because as we said, just largely overall, they have a much better team.
I agree.
I don't know. I mean, something about the Rams. I don't know. I can't really give you I can't really point to a specific example. It's just something I just have some feeling about him that I don't know. I haven't put the Buccaneers, I think, as the favorite, even though they surprised me in New Orleans. I'm sure we'll get to that, but this week. But something about the Rams, I don't know. Like I said, I just can't pinpoint. They just maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's something about West Coast dome teams. I don't know, but they just I don't know. Like can you imagine they had to do this? I guess. It was last year. So can you imagine if they have to go to Lambeau Field?
They did last year, yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't usually work out well.
No, it doesn't.
No. I don't know.
No, it doesn't. That's why I think those kind of teams have to have their games at home. They can't afford to have to go to Lambeau. Speaking of, Joseph mentioned, that's what good teams do. They take care of their business. Let's talk real quickly about the Bengals. Last week we talked about the Bengals being 5-2, having defeated the Ravens convincingly, and then they come out against the Jets in New York and kind of lay an egg. I mean, they were behind most of that game. They took a lead, I think a couple touchdown lead, and then they let the Jets come back with a quarterback that was making his first career start. Mike White threw for 405 yards and I think 3 touchdowns. And I saw a stat today that it took Peyton Manning 35 games to reach those numbers. So not that we're putting Mike White in the same category as Peyton Manning, but the point I'm trying to make is the Bengals, are they still a team that we might want to look at to make a playoff run, or are they just, kind of a flash in the pan?
They're not a flash in the pan. I think we said it last week. They're not a Super Bowl contender, but I think they get in the playoffs. It was a little bit surprising what happened to them this week, but they're still not at the level where, like the Rams Texans game, where you say, okay, they need to come out and handle their business against the Jets here. It wasn't that surprising the Jets won this game or played them close. They're not at that level yet, but if they want to get to that level, they're gonna have to start winning games like this.
I agree.
Yeah.
Nathan?
Well, I thought it was pretty surprising because the Jets are so bad. I mean, and if this game had come before that Ravens game, I would have said it's not too surprising. But after that Ravens game, it was really, really strange. And it looks like the Bengals were down 7-0 early, but then after that they were leading or tied the whole game until the very end when they lost.
Yeah,
So
the Jets aren't bottom tier bad. They're not
yeah, I
Houston,
know.
Houston,
Detroit.
Jacksonville, and Detroit, but
Right.
they're like right the next level up.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I don't like to look at I don't like to totally flip flop my opinion on teams after a single game. Like, oh, this team's great. Now they're bad. Then now they're great.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying they're bad or anything. I guess overall, like Joseph, really, if you really stop and think about it, the initial shock of it when that wears off, my opinion of the Bengals hasn't really changed much. Like Joseph, I think we always thought they were kind of like the Cardinals in that they're not really a team that is ready to contend for the Super Bowl.
Right.
Which they still aren't, but they are still a team I think that can make the playoffs. So I don't know if anything's changed in my mind with them. It's just this doesn't look good. And if you want to become one of those teams that is going to win, favorite to win the division, Super Bowl contender, you have to beat teams like the Jets.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I agree with everything you guys said, but I think a loss like that hurts them a little bit because they do have a tough schedule coming up. They have to play the Steelers again. They have to play the Ravens again. They'll have to play the Browns. They play the Chiefs. So it's going to be a challenge
And
for them.
that's the great thing about the NFL too is you never know, any given Sunday team can upset you. I mean
Right.
Even the bad teams are still NFL teams. I mean they still have
Right.
NFL athletes out there and they can beat you. So maybe the Bengals let down a little bit after playing the Ravens. Who knows? Maybe they saw they were going to New York to play the Jets. And
Could be.
I got the Jets.
Let's talk about the Buccaneers and the Saints. Nathan referenced the Buccaneers real quickly there. The Saints beat the Buccaneers twice last year, opening day, and then beat them rather resoundingly midseason. And here we go again. I mean, the Buccaneers go to New Orleans and can't beat the Saints. Brady uncharacteristically throws an interception when the game was basically on the line. I mean, I think they were only down by a couple points, the Buccaneers. All they needed was a field goal. He had plenty of time to engineer one of his patented drives, and they threw a pick, which Nathan and I were watching it, and Troy Aikman kind of said, the safety was deep, and he was coming up and so forth and so on.
Yeah, Troy Aikman gave it. If you look at it, it's like has Brady, I say that, but Troy Aikman gave an interesting insight, and it's always good to hear this from people like Aikman who not just played in the film, but were great players. Aikman was saying it's tough to tell kind of the depth of that. Like it's tough to tell if he's driving on that real hard,
Right.
Or if the receiver's going to cross his face, and
Right.
you can fit the ball in before he gets to him. So after I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess you can't really tell how hard he's driving like that. And he thought he was going to be able to fit it across his face. There,
Right,
the receivers
right.
coming through. It just didn't happen.
But either way, they gave up 38 points. Well, we'll take one of those away because after the session, but they did give up almost 30 points to the Saints. And, is this just a case of, hey, the Saints have the Buccaneers number, or, is it possible that the Buccaneers could hit a little bit of a tough stretch here?
I think it's more of a case of they might have their number, and that I think Saints have a pretty good home field advantage for some reason. Like the dome that they play in down there, it suits them well. There's something about it. I think it's hard for teams to go in there and win for one reason or another. And I think that also, you're seeing now that I think Sean Payton's a pretty good coach. Like for years they had Drew Brees, right? But
right.
Now without him, they didn't just fall off a cliff here. They're 5-2, and I wouldn't put them in that top three, like I keep saying, the Rams, Packers, Buccaneers quite yet, but they're a good team, and really, like I said, in the past 15 years or so, or since Peyton's been there, they haven't really just had like a horrible season where they've won like 3 or 4 games. They're always competitive, especially at home, and I think it's just you just chalk it up to they have their number and you move on. Like it's similar to last year when the Buccaneers lost to the Bears in Chicago, and Brady forgot what down it was at the end of the game, and it was about this point in the season too, and you're like, oh, how'd they lose that game? And they went on to win the Super Bowl. So I wouldn't read too much into it.
Yeah, I think if you look at their schedule, I see them being no worse than 13-4, probably 14-3. I mean, they have a bye this week. Then they're at the Redskins. They host the Giants, and they're at the Colts. 3 games they're going to win. They're at the Falcons, another win. Then they play the Bills in December, which that's going to be a challenge. And then they play the Saints again, which obviously is going to be a challenge. And then they finish with the Panthers, the Jets, and the Panthers. So, they're not going to lose. To me, the only games that are losable are the Bills and the Saints.
Yeah. Do you guys think that the Winston injury will affect him? Do you think he's that much better than Trevor Siemian, where you're gonna see a drop off, or is it kind of like, okay, it's kind of similar with the quarterback situation.
You want to answer that first, or want me to answer it first, Nathan?
I guess I'll answer it. I want to say no. You want to see a drop? Let me put it this way. You see, I think there's a drop off in potential.
Yeah.
James Winston has a much higher upside, much more potential than Simeon.
Right.
But I think he rarely reaches that potential. So if you look at what he would actually produce for you, I don't think you have much of a drop off. Right. But if you look at what he possibly could produce, you do have a drop off.
I agree. That's well said. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it, Nathan. I never thought of it quite that way. I guess I would look at it similar that, with Winston, there's a large margin for error, right? I mean, he could throw 5 touchdowns like he did in game 1 and then throw 2 picks the next week. Simeon's going to be more of a tighter curve if you're looking at a distribution.
Probably less turnovers, that's true.
Yeah, and he's not going to give you that 5 touchdown game. He's more of a game manager. But going back to what Joseph said, I think Sean Payton is a good enough coach where he will make sure that Trevor Simeon is put in situations where he can be successful. And I think the Saints, I think they're going to be fine. I mean, I don't see them really suffering all that much from it.
Yeah, and just that was a good analogy to the Bears game last year, where they had a loss at this point in the season, something kind of uncharacteristic from Brady that we saw. But really, this season's going just like last year for the Bucs. Really, I mean, what the Saints are beating them. If this was anybody else other than the Saints, I might have kind of maybe turned my head a little more and be like, oh, what was that? But it's something about the Saints. I guess they just have the Buccaneers number. I don't know. I'm not worried about the Buccaneers.
No, I'm not either. And
on the Saints side, the same thing goes for the Saints on the flip side. I don't think that much more highly the Saints because they have the Buccaneers number.
Right. Well, the Saints, I think let's look at the Saints schedule real quick here, kind of get an idea of what they've got left. Well, if it'll come up for me here.
I have it here.
You have it? All right.
They host the Falcons.
Okay. And they're at the Titans.
Yeah,
right.
You can go ahead.
No, they host the Falcons, at the Titans, at the Eagles, host the Bills, host the Cowboys, at the Jets, at the Buccaneers, host the Dolphins, Panthers, Falcons. So, yeah, mostly winnable games. Maybe the Cowboys and the Buccaneers again.
I think the Falcons could beat in one of those games.
They could, but Falcons don't impress me.
No, they don't, but I think they could beat them.
Yeah, they could. You're right. But, we'll see. I mean, we'll see about the Saints. Let's finish our discussion of Week 8 with a game that I'd rather not discuss. The Monday night game last night, the Giants and the Chiefs. The Chiefs ended up winning the game. I'm not going to get into my frustrations with the Giants this week. I guess the reason I want to bring that game up is considering how close that game was. Do the Chiefs have some real problems? In other words, I was expecting the Chiefs to blow the Giants out, and I think last year they would have.
Yeah.
And the Giants were shorthanded. Remember, they had most of their receivers hurt. Yeah. One of them they lost again last night. So, are we worried about the Chiefs here? I mean,
I think this is the point where you got to think they do have real problems because, like you said, I kind of expect them to blow the Giants out too, and I think the Chiefs of the past 2 or 3 years would have done that, like you said.
Right.
Again, I didn't get to watch the entire game, but Mahomes, I think, only had 1 touchdown and a pick as well.
Right.
Kind of from what you've seen from him in the past 3 years. And, and I think I've said in previous episodes that it wouldn't surprise me if they rattle off 4 or 5 wins in a row. Now I think it would surprise me. Like, I think that this is kind of what they are. And you may see like a 10-7, maybe, and even a 9-8. And,
right.
I think they still get to the playoffs, but it may not be, they may not be what we thought they were in terms of a top tier AFC team.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think if I recall, I've been saying for a few weeks now they have serious problems. I don't think they're.
Oh, you have.
Yeah.
Right.
So right.
Last time was a moment where I agreed with that.
Yeah. So I don't have anything new to say. I mean, they do have serious problems. Obviously, look at them. I mean, so I guess my opinion hasn't changed at all. I will say my opinion changed about the Giants a little bit in that, after seeing this game now, I'm starting to think the Giants. I never saw the Giants as a dangerous team to people, but now I think the Giants can be a little dangerous to some of these teams some of these good teams that have to play them coming up because the Giants do like stupid things. They make these silly mistakes that lose them games.
Right.
But if they can just not make a few silly mistakes here and there and take away some of those head scratching plays, they have the talent and they're playing well enough to beat some of these teams.
Yeah.
So it's not like a team like Detroit that just doesn't look like they have the talent to compete right now. It's like they have it. They just make these mistakes that change the game. I mean, Mahomes basically had 2 interceptions. I mean, that one, the Giants guy was offsides. I don't know if he was lined up. It looked like he might have kind of leaned forward a little bit. But it was an interception that had nothing to do with that penalty.
The game.
Right.
The Giants were ahead.
It had nothing to do with that penalty. It wasn't like pass interference interception.
Right.
Yeah. And then, so my point is nothing's changed my opinion about the Chiefs. The Giants, I think they are kind of a dangerous team. I will also say in the Chiefs' favor to the Chiefs, on the Chiefs side of things, though, that this was a Monday night game, and I always think that I said this I think last week maybe that primetime games Sunday, Monday, Thursday, especially Thursday for obvious reasons, but it's kind of games that anything can happen in. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like if this, I feel like if this was a Sunday afternoon game, I don't know if the Giants play him that close.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I don't disagree with that at all. One thing I will say, though, I mean, about the Chiefs, I agree with Nathan 100%. I think that the Chiefs are in trouble a little bit. I think they're not the same team they were before. And I think that their bye week is week 12. So I think when the calendar turns to December, today we're at November the 2nd, we'll know. I mean, if the Chiefs are either going to be out of the playoffs or in, and here's why I say that. Next week, they play the Packers this week. Right. They play the Raiders, and then they play the Cowboys.
Yeah, that's tough.
So, if they lose 2 of those 3 games, you're looking at 5 and 6, and I think you can forget it.
They could lose all 3 of those.
They could lose all 3 of them.
The Chiefs at the point where they can rattle off 5 or 6 losses in a row now.
That's right. So, now, granted, they're in a division that nobody seems to want to win. The Chargers lost to the Patriots.
I don't know what to make of that game. But,
I don't know. And the Raiders look to be the team that might be in the driver's seat. But I think the Chiefs are coming up. I think the Chiefs are coming into 3 weeks here that are going to make or break their season.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay, so
after this 3 weeks, they had to play the Raiders again, then the Chargers.
That's right.
So I mean, then the Steelers, and then the Bengals. So they have a pretty tough schedule, really.
They do. No, they do. I mean, and they should have made hay early on. When some of their games they could have won. That's
right. They should have. Let's see here. Well, they kind of beat everybody they should have beat, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't. Yeah, I don't know. Except the Titans. They should have beat the Titans. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah. All right. Before we look at some of the key games coming up this week, let's take another quick look at the standings like we always do each week. Or AFC again seems to be the conference that's going to be interesting. I thought the Bills would run away with the East. I still think they will, but they're 5-2. The Patriots are now 4-4. Dolphins and Jets are finished. North Division, I think the Ravens are the class of that division, but gosh, you look at the Ravens are 5-2. The Browns are in last place. They're only 2 games behind the Ravens in the loss column. So I think that's going to be down to the wire division. I think the South is pretty much done. I think it's going to be a little closer than we thought because of the Derrick Henry injury, but I think the Titans win that one. And we just got done talking about the West. I mean, again, the Raiders are 5-2. The last place team, Chiefs and the Broncos, are 4-4. So the AFC is by far from being over. Let's put it that way. The NFC, I think, is more cut and dry. Cowboys are way ahead in the East. They'll win it. Packers are going to win the North. I think the Buccaneers are still going to win the South, especially after the Jameis Winston injury. And I think it's either going to be the Rams and the Cardinals in the West. So much more cut and dried in the NFC.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I think you've got your playoff teams in the NFC already. You've got Cowboys, Packers, Buccaneers, Cardinals, and Rams. And then 2 other teams are going to luck up and get in there, but they're not going to make any hay, I don't think, in the playoffs. But 2 other teams will definitely get in there.
Do we think Detroit's going to win a game this year?
I thought they were going to win this week.
I would think. Well, they got to win sometime, but they don't have to. They went 0-16 in 2008 or whatever.
Yeah.
I'll admit, last week I did call that they're going to beat the Eagles, and that it didn't happen. So we'll see.
Well, you called they're going to have the first win. The Cardinals are going to have the first loss. So you went 500.
Yeah.
Right. They do get lucky, Detroit, and have a bye this week, so they do get a chance to.
Go ahead, Justin.
I think they won eventually.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, they'll beat one of these teams like the Falcons or the Broncos. Yeah, with the Bears. Yeah, they have to win.
All right, let's finish up our episode by taking a look at week number 9, which will get underway rather quickly here with the Thursday night game, which will be the Jets at the Colts. Not a real marquee game. As far as games coming up this week that look like they're going to be marquee type games, the Browns at the Bengals. I think we'll find out a little bit about the Bengals there for sure. The Vikings at the Ravens. The reason I bring up that game is the Vikings now are 3-4 after losing to the Cowboys, which got to be a little bit of an embarrassment, losing to the Cowboys with a backup quarterback making his first start. But I think if the Vikings have any hope of being a wild card team, they've got to win this game. Gosh, outside of that, I don't see a lot of exciting games this week. Packers. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Packers or Chiefs would be the only other one I would say.
Yeah, I think the Sunday night game, Titans at Rams.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because you're gonna see what the Titans are made out of without Henry this week.
Right.
Do they come out and lay an egg Rams completely, or do they make it close and maybe even who knows, maybe even win the game, and then to prove that hey, we really have staying power without Henry here. So I think that's not going to get matchup record wise, but there's a lot going on for the Titans in that game.
Right. That's true.
I'd love to see Pearson come out in his first game and have like 200 yards rushing.
Well, the kid, they have to give him like 30 carries.
Yeah,
right.
They have to treat him like Derrick Henry is back there still.
Right.
As far as how you're going to approach running.
What are you saving him for at this point? Just give him the ball.
Exactly. No. This is not some guy you've had on your roster that he has to play now that you're going to try to, we can't give him as many carries. We have to change our personal offense. We don't have Henry now. To act like this is Derrick Henry. And just give him,
but they're probably not going to do that.
But, no, they're not, which is not going to bode well for them. But.
But they may have to. You just never know. But I think the Titans and Rams is going to be probably the marquee matchup. Packers and Chiefs only because there's so much riding on that game for the Chiefs. The Chiefs have pretty much got to win that football game.
Browns Bengals is interesting.
Browns and the Bengals is going to be interesting because the Browns are 4-4. They can't afford another loss, and the Bengals sure don't want to lose 2 in a row. So I think there are a few good games, this week that the Cowboys and the Broncos. Not that that's a marquee matchup, but I think this is the game the Cowboys have always shown in the past that they slip up and lose. So let's see if they can continue on and show that they're a team to be reckoned with this year.
Bears Steelers would be a good game. There's like the 60s or 50s.
If it was the 70s, it'd be a great game, or the 80s.
Was the Bears good in the 70s?
Who?
The Bears, were they good?
They were pretty good. They had Walter Payton, so they weren't bad.
And also, this is a week that the Patriots need to win if they want to keep pace with the Bills.
Yes.
Not a terrible team, but a very beatable team, kind of like the Chargers were, similar maybe, but they need to win that game because I think the Bills play Jacksonville this week. You got to think they'll win that.
Yeah. For all our fantasy friends out there, if you can pick up the Buffalo Bills defense this week against the Jaguars, defenses seem to have a feast on the Jaguars, and you're right. Patriots need to beat the Panthers to keep pace because more than likely Buffalo will beat the Jaguars this week. Cardinals are at the 49ers. I'm not sure that's a great game, but I think the 49ers at least are putting up a little bit of a fight with their win over the Bears last week. And we'll see a little bit about what they do. So week 8 in the books, almost halfway through the season. I guess you could say just about halfway through the season. And we'll see what happens. Any final thoughts, Joseph?
No, not really. Just I want to see Peterson with a lot of carries. That's it.
Okay. Nathan? Same thing?
Same.
Okay. All right. So that's episode 104 of the Press Box Podcast, our week 8 recap of the National Football League. Remember, hit us up on Twitter at PressBoxPod. We've been putting polls up there. We've been trying to tweet out. We want to hear from you. Tell us what you think. Who's your favorite team? What are you most upset about with your team? Do you think our picks are who we think is going to win these divisions? You think it's right? Let us know. At PressBoxPod is also our Instagram handle. And of course, the PressBox Podcast on YouTube is our YouTube channel. We appreciate all of you out there, our listeners. We appreciate all of you interacting with us, and we hope that you will continue to do that. So for Joseph, for Nathan, I'm Ralph, and that's been in the PressBox Podcast for week number 8 of the National Football League. We'll see you next time.